harder to target, the top laners and all these things without giving up first picks. Game 1, we saw it was Heimer, Akali, TK, all banned away. I'm expecting that to be run back by RNG. We'll see if they want to swap Tahm Kench out for Aurelia if they're really worried about that. But I think that game was more about the Tahm Kench and the ability to move around the map and bot lane having a bigger impact because of it.
I really like this Talia ban coming out from the side of G2. I'd also like to see Urgot banned away. When we saw RNG draft towards the Aatrox, in the group stages, it meant that they shifted their whole playstyle much more towards early game playmaking. And I think G2 are fine with Let Me being on that style of champion. The problem is it actually leaves the Alistar open, which is a huge playmaking support and considered the strongest in the game right now.
Even so, you're giving up something there, but it is like similar somewhat to the Leona that they had in game 1. And I would say I like this for G2. I think it is intelligent because the other answers to the Aatrox are generally carries. When you look at things like people talk about Quinn, people talk about Fiora, people talk about champions like this that Let Me has not shown he wants to play into Wonder. So, with tanks coming up, sure, you can try to play it somewhat even, but eventually you're going to get outscaled.
And I also think that G2 should just keep playing towards their strength, which is strong solo laners. By grabbing the Aatrox already, I guess they're willing to make this sacrifice of, okay, our bot lane may struggle, they may have this engaged tool, but at the same time, we're going to keep playing towards Wonder and Perks, which is where our wins will most likely come from. And they can still flex that Aatrox. It can still go anywhere at once, but with the Aurelia still open, I wouldn't be surprised if G2 just grab that right now.
And of course, I don't want to be alarmist here, but the 2 losses that We'll Never Give Up suffered during the group stages were with Kosa's Lee Sin.
Yes.
They did pick up 1 win with it. Of course, it's locked in
Very
now,
ominous.
along with Xiaohu's Lissandra. I'm not saying anything into it. And I'm a little surprised by the Tristana. It's something that we've seen Hyonan play a couple times, but I prefer some of the other picks in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm actually very surprised. I feel like this is a pretty big step away from the style that G2 had been trying to play. Maybe this is them saying, hey, it didn't work from the red side in game 1. We actually have to make an adjustment here, try to play a different style. But Tristana is a champion that can be heavily bullied in the laning phase. It is going to be tough for him, I think, in that style of play. And while it is a great sieger and a great late game team fighter, that hasn't been the way that G2 generally wins their games.
What surprises me is this Camille ban coming out from G2. Let Me, we already talked about it. I'm expecting like a Scion pick to come out from him this game, maybe a Cho'Gath, something like an Ornn even. But instead, they're actually going to take the Camille off the board and the Sivir off the board as well. This does still leave the Lucian open.
And Kai'Sa's open as well.
Kai'Sa's open as well.
Bold enough.
Like, I think that these bans fascinate me. G2 clearly have a plan in mind. And when you kind of look at junglers open, Xin Zhao is still available to them if they want to grab that one up. Instead, they're just going to stick with the Gragas.
I think we might just see G2 just try to play a more teamfight style of game. I mean,
maybe.
It'll be interesting. I think it will depend largely on what the last pick is here, but Uzi's going to go towards the Kai'Sa. So this is less about the lane bullying, but still, there is definitely the opportunity to bully even with a Kai'Sa against a Tristana, who I think has one of the weaker laning phases. You can circumvent that somewhat by kind of taking the reckless approach, going early attack speed, trying to push in your opponents, trying to avoid that, and it's going to be Poppy. So the tanky answer to Aatrox, I think it is quite a good answer, given the style of play that Let Me wants to bring out, and given the 1v1 against Wonder.
Ooh, so if they lock this one in, I feel like
more about
against, 100% as hell. I think G2 is saying, you know what, we're going to scale, and we're going to team fight you. And this is not the style with which G2 got through the gauntlet. This isn't how they've played all year long. This is a team that is very much more around either finding early game leads and then snowballing off of that, or playing 1-3-1. The fact that they are saying, you know what, RNG, we will go to the mid to late game, we will try to 5v5 you, I think is a big departure from what we normally see.
It really is, and I have to think that based off of this draft from G2, they don't think they can do the 1-3-1 style, at least against this team, with the bans that have been set forth. They may not feel, hey, we can't make this work against RNG without Tahm Kench, without that Akali, and while you certainly give RNG a heavy advantage in a teamfight style, if G2 were to beat RNG at their own game, holy crap, does that crush your mental going into a potential elimination game.
The internet would explode if RNG, the defending MSI champions, the back-to-back LPL champions, the champions of Rift Rivals, the region champions for Asia Games, were on match point with G2 Esports, the 5th, 6th place team from the summer split. then had to make the run back. Let's see if RNG can rise to the challenge. I think Casa's Lee Sin is definitely where my eyes will be going very early on this game, and despite his 1 and 2 performance here at the World Championship, there will be some opportunities for him to disrupt G2 Esports and prevent them scaling up to where Casio and Tristana can be impactful.
And I look at this RNG composition and I see Kai'Sa Alistar, still a very strong 2v2 lane. Something that Uzi and Ming are extremely comfortable on. Xiao, who again on the Lissandra, struggles to generate pressure against the Casio, but offers a follow-up engage from that of the Alistar. And Casa on his fabled Lee Sin, mechanically one of the best in the world. I cannot wait to see how they stack up.
Listen to those fans in the background. RNG are crushing G2 as far as the fan cheers are concerned.
RNG would crush anyone as far as the fan cheers are concerned.
Touché, I concede that point. I concede that point, Azael. And let's see whether or not G2 can find another crushing win. You know, both game 1 and 2 of this series were defined by the stylistic choices.
Ooh, they might hop over here.
And there's a very cheeky level 1. There's a rocket
No
jump,
way.
lands for the slow. That's a body
gonna
slam.
get him.
There's a stun following up as well. And first blood picked up by Perks.
This is beautiful from G2. You can see them setting up Braum and the Gragas sneak in from the side at the same time as Yarna just jumps over the wall. They're gonna have first blood onto Perks, an insane start.
G2 Esports play the mind games. They haven't done a level 1, I think, ever this year. And for the first time this year that they do it, they find a
one's
kill
ever
on
done
the RNG look at all the bars and they go, G2 don't do anything level 1, we're fine setting up a line of scrimmage. And then over the wall, Hyanan jumps in, the flash body slam from Jankos. Beautiful start to this game from the side of G2. So we'll get to see now. Wadid sitting in the brush with Jankos right behind him, Hyanan over the wall. And then he's just going to jump on top of it.
It is just beautiful. No vision of Uzi, just pure scouting, taking the gamble.
Puts his ward down.
Now, what impact does this have on the follow-up laning phase? Jankos obviously starting body slam. You can see Hyanan getting to lane just a little bit late to the rocket jump.
I mean, I think one of the biggest impacts it has is just simply on the mid lane. You look at a double Doran's ring start here for Perks. That has got to be very frustrating for Xiaohu, especially in a world where he is going towards Comet. He is setting up his runes more for the laning phase. This is not the Aftershock Lissandra, so you know, he was hoping to perhaps be able to bully out this lane, and all the additional mana and AP he's going to have is going to make that a lot harder.
And of course, Perks being one of the most influential members on G2. Let's see what he can do with his advantage. Ming and Uzi, they get the level 2 advantage. They push Hyanan and Wadid all the way back. It looked like Let Me also got the advantage up in the top lane. He was jumping into Wonder's face with that poppy.
He's in a dangerous spot, though, if he doesn't back off, and we'll see Jankos, so definitely a good job by him. But Poppy can really trade well with the Aatrox. It is one of the only tanks, I think, that can kind of continuously look to brawl, especially using your Buckler. The passive to throw out and proc Grasp is very tough to actually deal with for Aatrox.
And I remember when Wonder played this matchup in the play-in stage, I believe it was actually against the Supermassive top laner as well. And in that laning phase, Wonder crushed him. He built up like a massive CS lead. He was bullying him underneath his tower, but so far in this early laning phase, Let Me is trading much more effectively and is actually forcing Wonder underneath his tower. Wonder actually just used his teleport, by the way. I don't know if he did that by accident or why that ended up getting popped up.
He was already so
I see.
So it's
that
just a strong laning phase from Levy as good rocket
Yeah,
jump
Wadid's
there.
dead. Wadid's definitely dead. Gets stunned up. Exhaust comes out far too late, and Ming and Uzi just a straight up 2v2.
Yeah, and that's 2 summoners down and the kill there. So really nice 2v2 play there from Uzi and Ming. Uzi also is the one to grab the kill.
If there were one player you would not want to piss off on the Rift with a very early level 1, Uzi might be one of those players that would make your shortlist. You can see Ming and Uzi just zoning Hyanan away.
Exactly. Even if they don't go for the dive, you just threaten it. You walk forward, you push him off that farm. This is how they always create these incremental advantages, and one of the many reasons that they are the best 2v2 in the world.
And Hyanan and Wadid can't afford to be falling behind after finding that first blood. While it didn't mean a huge amount in this 2 versus 2, giving away these advantages over to Uzi on the Kai'Sa is definitely how RNG can come up huge in these team fights. Now, Hyanan was able to buffer out of that situation, but Wadid, he doesn't expect the burst from the proc of the passive from Uzi, and combined with the ignite, that's enough to find them a kill.
And it was actually perfectly timed by RNG. the minion that gets them both level 3 died as he was comboing. So that was very deliberate, very intentional off of that level 3 for the Alistar, so you can have the full combo with the trample and the stun, and that was just so well done.
Well, let's see if Xiaohu can use Ming's help. There's a flash and a cleanse available to Perks. Miasma comes down to prevent the engage. Very heads-up play from Perks.
Great use of the phase rush there to escape from that gank.
Remember,
but
no
now we see
TP
Casta
here.
top lane.
All right, I'm keeping my eyes on the stun. The wall bang from Let Me. There it is. Flash into the Hammer Shock and just sets it down.
That was flawlessly done, guaranteeing that the Lee Sin Q would hit. Yankov's not going to be able to get a trade kill here, and that's not only the death on Aatrox, it's a TP-less Aatrox going down, which makes it so much worse, because you can shove in this wave, you will deny the experience.
Oh, I'm holding my breath for this engage. What did we?
Oh!
Very cheeky, using the stand behind me to swap places. But Uzi, by the way, has returned to lane with a BF sword, and he's going up against a Doran shield for Gyanin. So they really do not want to be fighting in that lane.
But the problem that G2 have right now is that their solo laners can't afford to fall behind like they are currently doing. We now see a gank in the mid.
All right, Xiaohu's got the Glacial Pot, manages to take it. Was not interrupted by Yankov.
Yeah, Yanko was short on the flash. The body slam did not connect there, so flash down gets nothing for it. Good attempt, but certainly left wanting on the execution.
And right now we're seeing a lot of execution errors on the side of G2. The fact that the bot lane died in the 2 versus 2 allowed Ming to roam up, threaten Perk so that he can't look to try and trade aggressively into Xiao, who Wonder getting out-traded in the 1 versus 1, forcing him to go back to base, and then giving RNG an opportunity to find another kill means that this early game going heavily in favor of RNG's way.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can continue that because, again, now this is the flash disadvantage for the jungler. As Karsa hits 6, he will have his flash up, and he can look for kick flash as one of those all-powerful plays we know Lee Sin can go for.
And you kind of need to set the expectations of what we're looking for in this game too, because for G2, I think that their Baron setup is really strong with the Cassio and Tristana duo, but also their team fighting is very impactful, assuming Wonder can find the flank, because their engage tools, the only real way they have to start fights is that Gragas ultimate, or maybe a flash in from Wadid ulti 2, whereas RNG, they have the Alistar engage, they have the Lissandra engage, they have a potential flank from Karth, a potential flank from Legme. It's so much easier for RNG to actually start these fights that if they come into the mid game with a lead, and G2 is also looking to team fight, it is always going to go in favor of RNG just because of how much easier it is for them to kick things off.
On the flip side, the G2 composition can disengage. When you have a Gragas, a Cassio, a Tristana, but they cannot afford to be too far behind. So let's see how G2 play these next few minutes. It's 7.5 in, and Giannis decided to go for the Berserker Goose Rush.
And you've also got to remember how hard it is to actually engage through the miasma. If you don't get a flank, Perk suddenly just drops that down. We saw how easily he disengaged that gank that was coming across from Ming on the roam. So certainly there is potential to absorb those engages if you get that flash, not even just for disengage, but splitting up members. You can focus someone down with Cassio tricks.
It's so difficult though, because Miasma will cover one angle, and then Poppy's going to come for another. Lee Sin's going to ward hop through something else. Glacial Path won't care. So there's a lot of options, and it's going to come down to outplays, which, by the way, RNG are currently winning in. They've got very good opportunities in both top and bottom lane, and every time we look at this mini-map, it feels like Ming and Karsa, they are fishing for opportunities. They're stepping forward into G2's territory, and they're clearing out the vision as well.
Yeah, they're setting up for this Ocean Drake right now. Want to try and secure that early. RNG have push in bot. They actually have priority over mid as well. And huge props to Let Me in an Aatrox matchup where Wonder is very comfortable on the champion. It's something that he's had a lot of success with so far at Worlds. Let Me is doing extremely well with a CS advantage, working well with his jungler, forcing that early teleport out from Wonder as well. This is a guy that, for someone who's expected to only play tanks, is really making life difficult for the top laner of G2.
He's really playing that tank well.
Yeah, he is.
and it is really one of the better matchups, as I've said, brawling into this Aatrox. For a lot of tanks, so we'll see if they go in. They do kind of have some fun with their base damages until Aatrox really gets to a Black Cleaver or one item. For Poppy on a Sunfire, you can actually just run at Wonder on this Aatrox. You really can stay very aggressive, and even towards the 2-3 item mark, if you want to go for an Iceborne and build heavily for the 1v1, you can brawl with this guy for quite some time.
That's why Let Me's in the lead.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about him as a tank player, and being one of the best tank team fighting players out of the LPL.
Jankos.
Let's take a look at this. There's a Gragas Bell that catches out into Uzi. He's already caught with the exhaust. Stunned up, locked up, knocked down. Teleport's being channeled, but look at Ming. He's found Hyonin. He gets the 3-man knocker, but straight under the teleport. Xiaohu takes a tower shot, gets caught by the Winter's Bite, but there's no further follow-up from G2 Esports.
That disengage from Ming was insane. The 3-man knock up there, buying time for Uzi to get out. The TP maybe should have just been canceled, honestly, from Xiaohu, as it looked like they had disengaged.
I feel like, though, that if it didn't come through, then Jankos would have committed to try and securing that kill. And it also just relieves some of the pressure. They get both summoner spells out from Uzi. He's forced to back off, but Karsa, aware of what's going on the map, immediately goes towards the top side. And even though Wonder has his ulti, they zone him away from the tower, and they create an even bigger CS discrepancy.
Yeah, Wonder's down 20 CS. Yes, it's even in the mid lane, but it's 40 CS in the bot lane, and that bottom tower is being chipped away from. RNG are already 1,500 gold up at the 10-minute mark.
Yeah, and they've spotted Jankos here. Remember, Kick Flash is available. We could see them look for a play. Lemmy could even go for a flash wall stun if they really want to commit.
Holding my breath.
He's going to go for it.
Holding my breath. Flash is available, as you mentioned. As soon as Jankos steps in, the heroic charge will be available. It may not even be needed. That was beautiful in its simplicity.
Yeah, that was so well done. And this top jungle duo for RNG, you don't expect them to be putting all their time up there. You expect them to be playing around the bot side, you know, playing around Uzi. Instead, Karsa and Letme are making Wonder, you know, and Jankos on this top side really have some early game troubles.
Yeah, and again, we kind of go back to the draft where we talk about for G2, this style of play is not conventional for them. We don't expect them to draft more towards team fighting. They're much more about trying to build lanes, have strong solo laners, try and get Wonder and Perks ahead, but Wonder's falling behind, Perks is even in mid, the bot lane is struggling, and while they will secure first tower, RNG get the Rift Herald along with the tower trade on the other side.
Yeah, you've got to wonder if that was really worth it for RNG, though. They were winning in the 2v2 as the skirmish may go on.
Let's take a look. Xiaohu's got no flash available to him. Wonder and Perks were too far away to catch up.
I mean, they lane swapped out of 2 winning lanes to then give up first turret, and I really don't love the play. Yes, they did get Rift Herald, but we'll go back to that in a little bit, as this was the Karsa Let Me Play one more time. Nice board hop kick. The Steadfast Presence is up, so you can't even body slam out of that. The Q was still sitting in case he flashed. There's just nothing that Jankos could do from that position.
I wonder if RNG were expecting G2 to go back, or maybe they just thought that they would be faster on the play.
Yeah.
Maybe they just wanted to provide extra security for Karsa, because I believe they may have already been moving up before the play even happened. So maybe they're just moving up towards the top side to create a numbers advantage, to then just 100% guarantee that Rift Herald.
It's also possible that they just value the Rift Herald that highly, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're saying, hey, we can't break Perks out of this kind of farming safety anyway, except by getting the Rift.
Well, take a look at Wonder. He's under so much pressure, a level disadvantage, completed Sunfire Cape. And while Wonder's trying to defend that bottom turret, the rest of RNG, they were grouping up towards the mid lane. Uzi and Ming got caught out on top of the miasma. Ming's thrown down the Unbreakable Will, and here comes Wonder over the wall. Sonic Wave finds a target, and Karsa will hold onto the resonating strike, but the Ocean Drake has been interrupted and stopped.
Yeah, and Hjarnan is just pushing up topside. So unless RNG can get something done, you know, Hjarnan is going to be able to get this sieging done. He was down, as you said, 30, 40 CS. You know, he was getting pressured very heavily. We'll see if Xiaohu can find him here.
All right, Glacial Path as well as the Proto Belt. Buster Shot will buy some time, but Xiaohu's holding on to the ultimate for a few seconds longer, and this should just eventually be the kill.
He didn't even try to jump away. Yeah. I mean, why not just Buster Shot and then jump away? I don't really understand the play there at all.
I don't know.
Unless his hop was on cooldown, that he used it to get to the minions or something, but very strange.
Gentlemen, there are many questions to which we do not have the answer.
One of the great mysteries of the world.
And for now, there are no mysteries in who the advantage and who is in the lead. RNG have the gold lead at 2,000. G2, yes, they got the Ocean Drake, but they are at risk of losing another tower. And Wonder's going to get jumped on here and throws down the ultimate just to survive. Karsa's got himself that warrior enchant, and the second tower falls. RNG are just outplaying G2 in these small skirmishes in the one-on-ones time and time again.
I mean, the thing about RNG is they've proven throughout the entire year that if you match them in standard, they're just going to outplay you. They are that talented as a team. Uzi and Ming finding a 2 versus 2 kill in the bot lane. Xiaohu keeping perks even in the middle lane. Let me surprisingly outperforming Wonder in the top side of the map, and Castle just dictating the pace of the jungle. When you try and match standard against this team, they're in their comfort zone, they're in their element, and right now, they're about to generate a 4,000 gold lead over G2.
Yeah, now they've cracked that turret, taking away a lot of the safety from Perks here, as he wants to have that kind of safe bastion here where he can farm and where it's harder for him to get flanked. Now, that is gone as well, so that gets difficult for G2 to even find their farm safely. I mean, you look at these farm numbers, it's really good for Perks, but you can see how much trouble Wonder has been finding. This is a guy who normally is hitting 10 CS a minute. He is down at 100 CS at 15. He has been heavily held down. If they can now start to hold down Perks as well, it just gets tougher.
It certainly does, and the thing is for RNG, they're basically relying on these late game team fights. Naturally, it gets harder because on a Poppy, you're going to offer more team fight value than an Aatrox will, especially one that's fallen behind. And Kai'Sa has a lot of playmaking potential considering how squishy the lineup is for G2. So, but there is still that potential win condition. It does exist. 3-item Tristana is a thing.
As we all hold our breath for the 1-item Tristana rocket jump to safety. And Vedius, I'm just going to reiterate something you said. RNG going to wait for some late game team fights. RNG, the LPL champions, waiting for late game team fights. I would not envy anybody standing in their way when you look at all of the tools that the Royal Never Give Up squad has to work with, and Uzi can just clean up once the rest of the team has set up the fight.
Yeah, you're definitely expecting that to be the case. I mean, we'll see if G2 can pull something off, if they really can, outfight them. We've seen that Perks has been able to make some miracles happen in these team fights. You think back to last game, looked like it would have been RNG's, but Perks pulls off a miracle fight by the Baron, and on the Cassio, you have the team fight power to make something like that happen. If you get a flash ultimate on Cassio, you hit 4 or 5 members, hey, anything can happen.
Yeah, Perks has actually done it on Cassio here in the EU LCS in the past as well. In a game 5, when you need to save his team. And this time around, it is in game 3. The series is 1-1. RNG and G2 won games respectively in their sort of quintessential styles, really, the expected way. And for G2, they pulled a rabbit out the hat this time around. They picked this team fighting style, team composition, which we were not anticipating. And they faltered early. As Letme's Poppycopter will get one lone minion. That minion, hate that minion.
While the minion might be upset, but the rest of RNG aren't, because you can see they've been able to push at mid and bot as G2 committed 4 members towards the top side. This will result in a tower, but RNG are going to trade it back almost immediately as Letme goes on the chase.
All right, Hyunan's already used the buster shots, and now Letme's going to try to run him down. Letme's just going to chase him with that Sunfire cape. Forced to use the flash and the rocket jump, and Letme is unstoppable.
Yeah, and the reason he had to flash there was because otherwise it gets steadfast presence. You will get knocked out of your jump by the Poppy, so if that looked weird, that is the reasoning there. And Letme certainly at a very strong point in this game, but yeah, you talked about it. Both teams kind of won a game with their style, and that is why people are so surprised to see G2 with, departing from their classic 1-3-1, from the style that has brought them success. And this is a very risky game. It is kind of that swing match that puts you at match point. If they can prove that you could beat RNG with their own style, with teamfight style, that opens up a lot of flexibility in pick and ban.
Sure.
But if they fall flat, well, RNG is just looking to run back the exact same strat, try to force you into the exact same bans.
Yep. Right now, things aren't looking great for G2. Just on paper, that Tristana is pretty far behind the Kai'Sa. In mid lane, still relatively even, and I am always optimistic of Perks on Cassio. You guys already talked about what she is capable of. But for me, Kai'Sa is kind of the deciding factor in a lot of these team fights. When you watch this man play Lee Sin, it is really incredible. The decision-making, the awareness, and the precision that he has on the champion to catch someone like Hyanan or Perks off guard, I think could be probably the biggest determining factor in why RNG are so good in a lot of these team fights.
And he's been doing it for so long. I mean, people always will think back to Flash Wolves and Karsa playing with them. Incredible Lee Sin plays, showing it up in MSI, stealing Barons, making it look easy. And it's been one of his best champions, one of his signature champions for so many years now. And Karsa has been playing at the highest level for so many years, but had never really tasted the international success. He had been dominant regionally with Flash Wolves, and now on RNG, not only is he getting his first taste of international success, so are guys like Uzi, who is picking up his first international championship, and the team has just really been elevated with his arrival.
Uzi was the crownless king in the LPL until Karsa stepped into his kingdom and helped him take back the crown. And of course, Karsa, as we mentioned, with RNG, they won LPL, they won MSI. They have their sights set on the World Championship trophy. And apologies if you don't want to know the KT result from earlier. Block your ears. But with KT Rolster faltering, now there's a lot of eyes on RNG and how far will they go. They've got a 4,000 gold lead up in their quarterfinal here against G2 Esports. They've got all the tools and the ability to close out this series, and that is the anticipated and expected result. It
really is, and it does make them the clear favorite for the World Championship title. If they get through this, thinking KT is already out, Gen.G has fallen out, they will be going up against a team in the semifinals who they have beaten twice this year, but G2 certainly has a lot of time to flip things on its head. What we're going to find out over the next week or two is whether or not the favorites keep falling. They're dropping like flies, Trevor. Every single time we anticipate or expect something to happen in one particular way, the underdogs really have stepped up, and maybe this is the World Championship where we can start saying that the gap actually has closed.
Well, there's still a long way to go left.
Dangerous words, Trevor.
I know.
It's a bold claim to make there. Good shot.
Drop the mic and we walk away. Leave it at that.
But kind of bringing us back into the game and seeing how things have unfolded. Wonder right now runs the risk of getting collapsed on.
Not the risk. I think he is being collapsed on. We'll throw down the world ender. This will buy some time. Ooh. Uzi, Killer Instinct available. I'm not going to use it. Instead, there goes a resurrection here. Flashes up for Wonder, but I think he'll hold on to it. And that's just being caught in the wrong place.
And this was a big mistake from Wonder. The rest of his team wasn't generating enough pressure elsewhere on the map for that really to be worth it for him. He doesn't have any vision on the bot side. It was a very easy collapse from RNG. It cost them absolutely nothing. And RNG just get further and further ahead. For Wonder, only now completes his first major item.
And it's so tough for Wonder because we've all had those games where you're behind and it makes you take more risks because you feel like you need that wave. You need that farm to try to get back into the game, to try to become relevant. You want to get that next item. You want to feel like you are kind of building that hope. But, in some games, the best thing you can do for your team is simply lose gracefully and let them try to carry.
Well, let's see whether or not G2 can punish Xiaohu. It's just after Wonder was killed. Xiaohu now will be caught up in the bottom lane, but there is a 2 or a 3-man Baron going on. G2 Esports have committed Wonder's teleport, and I don't think RNG are strong enough yet to do this quickly enough, but are G2 even aware? They're stuck on the mid, outer
How are they not aware?
Baron is still going low.
They are now.
Will reveal, but it's going to be too late. 3,500 hit points, and nobody from G2 have responded. RNG sneak the Baron from under G2's nose.
That is bizarre. I mean, if they that almost feels like it had to be a conscious decision because
I mean,
Karsa walked
100%.
right over the ward.
Yeah.
So they are going to trade out at least one turret. They get a turret and a kill for the Baron. You certainly think that should be RNG favored, especially with the potential to take more when you're already winning in the side lanes. But perhaps G2 just didn't feel that they were in a position to take the team fight. Uzi is already on a very strong part of the game without vision around there. They were perhaps saying, that is the game-losing play. If we go, maybe we can come back later.
I mean, that really surprises me just because of how strong Turks is right now.
I agree.
Like level 13, 14 Casio inside a Baron pit, that sounds like the dream for me.
Yeah.
But, either way, that is the decision G2 ultimately decided to make. RNG are able to pick themselves up a Baron. And now the question is, what can RNG do with it? Their siege isn't the strongest. Uzi and Xiaohu are pretty short range, and their ability to actually get onto these towers can be difficult, especially against the Casio. But what you expect from them is just a lot of pressure on all 3 lanes, and then rotations between the 3 to either look for a pick and then create a numbers advantage elsewhere.
Exactly. Soul lanes in the sides, Uzi in the middle, push-up waves, Karsa roaming between, looking for a pick. And I think that's the assignments that we're going to get from RNG, but that does give G2 a chance to try to pick someone off if they can find an even number fight. But right now, as you see, Karsa and Xiaohu are lurking.
Well, let's see if they can collapse, because you say giving some hope to G2 in these split scenarios. When you look at the Gragas, the Casio, the Tristana, there are tools in G2's kit, but they are very rapidly running out of time for when they can be able to wield them effectively. If RNG continue to suffocate the life out of G2's Rift, denying all of their jungle, denying their vision, denying minion waves, and G2 could just fall simply too far behind to pick a team fight.
I mean, this is just good patient play from RNG. They're pulling G2 apart. They're being able to get access to the turret through making the space, but ooh, Jankos, I think he was trying to get around that minion, but maybe just clipped on the edge. Might have been able to get in range, but not sure.
To be fair to G2, they do have a lot of wave clear right now, and this isn't the fastest push coming out from RNG. It's Let Me now 1v1 against Perkz.
Well, Perkz is going to try chase him down. It will be the cost of 1 and 2 towers. There's already a kill onto Wonder. He didn't even get a chance to use the ultimate. Wadid's coming to help Perkz as Let Me flashes for his life. He's already used the Poppycopter, and it looks like Yonit is going to close this one out. There's a lot of damage from Let Me back, though. In a 1v2, he finally goes down. But at what cost? Perkz' Petrifying Gaze is for naught.
The cost of the game.
And the base is broken wide open. Jankos gets caught out by Kasa, killed by Uzi, and so has the inhibitor. The Nexus turret is being focused at 25 minutes. RNG are yelling that they are not done yet. Pushing onto the Nexus turrets. They came here to win the series, and this is a statement win after Uzi gives up first blood at 2 minutes on the clock. RNG crush G2's top and bottom lane and are match points.
That was a very convincing finish from the side of RNG, but I have a lot of question marks around the performance from G2. A lot of decisions that I wasn't entirely in agreement with. But like, you can't fault RNG. They won 2v2 bot. Let Me had a great performance top lane. Xiaohu mitigated any pressure that Perkz tried to generate. And like, this just felt like a very one-sided game from RNG from start to finish.
Yeah, you gotta say this is RNG in their comfort zone. This is G2 trying to play RNG's style, and RNG saying, "No, you're not good enough yet."
Sit
right?
down, child. You're not welcome at this table. But I mean, as soon as they got a lead from Baron to game end, 2.5, 3 minutes. As soon as the team gets ahead, we've seen this series that they can close it. But it's going to be up to G2. They have side selection for game 4. Their backs are against the wall. We've got the State Farm analyst ready to break down exactly how RNG won the game.
Thank you. Quick shot. 2-1 now in favor of RNG. All the wins coming on blue side in this series. But what a sudden and peculiar end to that game. Kind of just like a strange Baron take into an immediate finish for RNG. Not that they weren't in control of the game up to that point.
That's actually fairly standard for RNG. They're one of the best LPL teams in ending with a Baron because they can play 1-3-1 or play those side lanes very well, as you saw. It's the ability to make all of the waves crash simultaneously to make you pick the hard choices.
I also think G2 gave up in the middle of the game. They're kind of like, hey, let's try and draft this team fight style. See maybe if we can match, maybe Perkz can win the mid lane hard, or we can actually survive bot lane with the Braum, Tristana against a Kai'Sa. Very quickly, they fell really far behind.
Yeah, let's talk about the approach G2 took to this game, because it's now the second loss on red side. They very clearly tried to do something different than game 1, but still to no avail.
Exactly. I think RNG had exactly the balance that they needed, with Tom Kench being the critical piece for G2's 1-3-1. And then I think when G2 realized they couldn't 1-3-1, they went for a team fight comp. However, instead of the Lucian, RNG had the Kai'Sa in this game, so I think they kind of won the late game arms race, since they were still good in the early game, and they actually brought good scaling to this one. That's another reason I think they were able to end after they got Baron.
Because it's important to highlight, in a best of 5, if you are G2, if you feel like on red side you're going to struggle getting your 1-3-1 comps, you have to try and do something. And you're not going to wait until game 5 testing this team fight comp. So I think doing it now makes sense, just based on a BU5, where you have a chance to go back to blue side in game 4 and you can go back to 1-3-1. The problem is, you've had all summer split to test teamfight comps, and they've never worked. You've lost to some of the worst teams in Europe with teamfight comps. You have never been able to beat the top teams with it. You've only really done that with your solo laners. So it's not the style for them, no matter. I actually rather see them just try and go all in on some wacky solo lane picks that could be 1-3-1 than try teamfight.
I mean, they could have opted for the Aurelia versus the Cassiopeia, even though it's not a great matchup into the Lissandra. I mean, Nuke Duck pulled that one out, I believe, in the European LCS. But ultimately, you did get to see the second phase of RNG. You know, they ran the Lucian lane win. And they're like, can we just actually win this series by just playing Lucian every single time? G2 said no. RNG like, okay, time to go back to the Kai'Sa late game 5v5.
Win lane anyway.
Exactly. And so I think that maybe if they're able to beat that, I don't know what really comes next. And that's kind of the big mystery around RNG, is that when you smash the panic button and suddenly MLXG appears, like that's the third and final form of RNG.
We'll talk about what's next in just a moment. Before we do so, let's talk about the MasterCard player of the game in Kai'Sa on the Lee Sin.
And you don't need to sub in MLXG when Kai'Sa is playing this well. He is a Lee Sin god. The casters mentioned it in the cast. Usually whenever he's in the pit, it means that he's going to secure the monster objective, and he didn't even need to play monster objectives with how he was dominated in lane phase.
And he put a really big camp on top lane Aatrox, which was the power pick that they ended up giving over to G2. Remember, Urgot was banned. Aatrox is then the remaining of the two near 100% pick ban champions at Worlds, and they completely shut it down. I actually find it super interesting how today, not only have we seen Aatrox go through a pick ban phase 1, so no champions are 100% pick ban at Worlds, it almost felt like a trap in this game.
Right.
It felt like RNG had everything they needed to be able to counter it, so the meta continues to evolve here at the World Championship.
I just think RNG, when they get to play this kind of style versus standard teamfight comps as well, they look so clean. Like the bot lane winning easily, Kai'Sa having completely free reign of enemy jungle and his own jungle to just go top lane whenever he wanted, go bot lane after. Like, I love that setup. The only lane that struggled a bit was the mid lane with the Cassiopeia pick from Perks, but that's not the kind of pick where you solo carry the game, because everything around you is just kind of on fire and falling apart, and then you can't do anything as a mage in the mid lane.
I think it was really just a hard lesson for G2 to learn. Alistar for Ming needs to be just as respected as Mata with Alistar. It's just a signature pick for him. You saw it with that incredible pulverize to save Uzi, because it's not like G2 didn't come into this with a very clear plan. They again tried to throw a lot of resources into ganking repeatedly or using teleports into the bottom lane, because you know that Uzi and Ming are going to be forward. Maybe you can punish it, but it was just Ming that absorbed all of that and turned it on its head.
G2 looking to even it up at 2-2 in this fourth game. They're going back to blue side to do it. No surprises there, I think. Deficio's the expectation that at this point on blue side, they try and go back to the 1-3-1?
Yes, I look at 4 specific picks, and you can't get rid of all 4, and that's the key thing about blue side. Heimerdinger, of course, then Tahm Kench, Akali, and Irelia. Those are the 4 big ones, I think, for G2 specifically. I'm expecting RNG to not ban Alistar like they did in Game 2, but instead ban the Tahm Kench. Because when you do that, the losing bot lane of G2 are stuck in their losing lane. They can't just get out and impact the map by creating numbers advantages, and that's why banning Tahm Kench is more important than banning Alistar versus G2.
Jad, is that adjustment, a Tahm Kench ban in place of an Alistar for RNG, enough to give them the third game victory?
I think so. I think I'd have to favor them. I think after watching so much of G2, if they're not in strict 1-3-1, and specifically against Uzi with a Tahm Kench, I think it's going to be tough. RNG is the team that does this to us. Their wins are so convincing. You go through, it's like, well, what do you change? And you think, we're kind of in a bad spot. This team's really good. So I think RNG takes a 3-1.
It feels as though G2 is running out of options. Who knows, though? They might pull something crazy out in Game 4 and bring us to a Game 5. RNG are 1 game away from meeting Invictus Gaming in the semifinals. We'll see if they can close out the series against G2 Esports after the break.
There's a rocket
No
that
way.
lands for the slow. That's a body
They're gonna
slam.
get him.
There's a stun following up as well. And first blood picked up by Perks. Now steps in. The heroic charge will be available. It may not even be needed. That was beautiful in its simplicity. But at what cost? Perks' petrifying gaze is for naught.
Cost of the game.
And the base is broken wide open. Jankos gets caught out by Kai'Sa, killed by Uzi, and so has the inhibitor.